everyone, and welcome to a special 380th episode of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief content producer and writer at jakestake.com, a pop culture entertainment news website. If you're watching us on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up. If you're listening to us on our audio platform, please download this episode and more episodes. For the 380th time, I want to say thank you so much to all of you who trusted me on this journey, and to thank all the publicists and people and artists and guests who have championed, who decided to take time out of their schedules to talk their careers and everything. So I want to say thank you so much. It means the world. For the 380th episode, I have a huge guest. He's an actor and writer. You may have seen him on the Rerun Show, Grey's Anatomy, Desperate Housewives, The Nobodies, and All Rise on television. He also was featured in The Master of Disguise, Along Came Polly, and a certain comedy known as Bridesmaids in films. You could also hear his voice on the Neighborhood Listen and the Pack podcasts. And he was also a brief writer on Saturday Night Live. So please help me welcome Mitch Silpa to the podcast.
Hi, Jacob. How you doing? Hi, everybody.
Hi, Mitch. It's a pleasure to meet you. And thank you so much for being on the special 380th episode.
That's my honor.
Thank you so much. And so let's get started. So you have worked as an actor for over 25 years. In your humble opinion, how has the industry evolved, and how has it changed for the better, for the worse, and why?
I mean, it's definitely evolved. I think it's always evolving. It's always changing. It always has. It's sort of like the nature of the industry. It's not the same now as it was in the 1930s before we were here, but yeah, it's evolved. And I think it feels like maybe in the last 5 years, it's kind of gone into like some sort of a hyper drive. Like it's really changing. When I first started working, I mean, I guess that was like in the early 2000s. There was just more TV shows that had like longer runs, that were on network, so they would have like longer runs. It was just more work. It felt like more opportunities for guest star parts and co-star parts for TV, and there were more films definitely being made. And it feels like of recent years, especially, there's just less productions. There's less movies being made. There's certainly less TV shows being made. I live in LA. There's definitely less productions in Los Angeles. Things are made outside of LA. So it's definitely, I don't want to be like negative right off the bat, but I don't think it's better. I think it's evolving. And I think everyone's sort of like, the feeling is we don't know what it's evolving into. It could end up being something great, but it definitely feels like right now we're in sort of like a wild, wild west period where like everyone just kind of like, well, I guess we have to, people are creating their own projects more, sometimes on social media, and trying to get their own work done that way, as opposed to going the familiar studio route. So in that sense, even though it's not really great financially, or it could be, ultimately, but in that sense, it could end up being something that's way more interesting creatively. But it's evolving into something, and I don't know. I feel like we're in the middle of something right now. Like it feels like all this dust is in the air. I think when COVID happened, it really definitely sent the industry into a tailspin. There was no production for a while, and then there started to be a little bit more production. Starting up a little bit more, and then we had the strikes. And then that shut everything down. And I don't feel like we've really fully recovered at all since the strikes happened. And I think that's where we are. And that's kind of my answer. It just feels like there's less work, and more people who are bigger names are more willing to take stuff that they may have not taken, parts that they would have not taken before. And so it gets pushed down. So, I made my bread and butter has mostly been like supporting roles, guest star roles, and it's just there's less of those. So yeah, it's just that's where we are.
And I think you hit the nail right on the head, because it's like, because I know that Los Angeles was a major player for years with the Universal lot, the Disney lots, the Warner Brothers, of course. And then you have now it's like Atlanta, Vancouver, New Orleans, Nashville, Chicago, and of course New York. Like those are all the major meccas when it comes to filming in North America.
Yeah. Also, there's a lot of stuff being shot in like Canada. That's a lot, but even with those cities, like even Atlanta, I think I was reading about that. There's just less productions in Atlanta. There's just less productions, which doesn't obviously just affect actors. It's affecting all sides, like the crew, people are, in all. And then I'm going to add AI is like, that's another thing that's like happening very fast. Like it's
Yeah,
so faster than we all could have predicted. And it's clearly taking people's jobs.
Yeah, for example, I was listening to before we got on. I was about ready to listen to Britney Spears's an AI version of Britney Spears sing Madonna's Ghost Town, and then also another thing is I'm like scared about if the Star Wars, like let's say they want to put in Carrie Fisher like as older Carrie Fisher when they do the post Skywalker stories. I'm like, you can't put unless Billy Lord signed out on it. It's like no.
I don't even understand it. I mean, I don't think a lot of people do, like what they can legally do. I mean, maybe they can do that. Maybe it's it feels creepy. It just feels weird that that actors like, well, obviously people can use AI for writing, they can use it certainly for special effects, editing, and now like, oh, I guess you can make something without actual actors, like humans that either, that's being kind of like put out there a little bit. It's just very strange, very strange period of time.
Absolutely, it is a very strange period.
That's why, like, the only thing I think, like, acting wise, I'm just going to talk specifically about acting, that we feel like live theater right now is really, I don't know if that's sort of making, I won't say a comeback, but like smaller theaters. I mean, you can't AI, at least at this point, who knows what the future happens, AI actors on a live stage. So live performing is something, musically, everything, it might start to be more appealing. We might, who knows? I'm hoping, because I love performing live. I love being on stage. I love it.
As long as there's no Angela Lansbury AI as dressed up as Mrs. Potts in the next incarnation of Beauty and the Beast Live, we'll be fine.
Is that what you think is going to be fine? All right, I'll go with it then.
I'm scared. No. I don't want to see Angela Lansbury AI as Mrs. Potts. I love her to death, but I'll go watch her old videos of her performing that song live.
Absolutely, because it's actually her performing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to see a computer dressed up as Angela Lansbury and singing Beauty and the Beast.
No. Have you seen any of the AI stuff going around that's like AI stand-ups? Like any AI, like just like it's pretty bad, but every once in a while there'll be something like, oh shit, there's like that was actually funny. And it was written by an AI.
I haven't seen that, but I have seen the popular to go back to Star Wars, the popular Skywalker stories, which basically AI everything. I'm like, I know I'm not supposed to like this, but they do a really good job, and much better than what Disney has put out for the past couple of years.
Yeah, I know. I hope we're not all drinking the Kool-Aid, but I need to work, so, and I love working, and so, but maybe in the future, maybe we're evolving into some, like, I'm listening to like a Pollyanna, like, but hopefully we'll find a way to work with AI and still have jobs and work, but it's really kind of like, as I said, it's like a Wild West right now. We've never been in this ever in the history of mankind, been in this situation before, so we don't know what it's going to land and what it's going to become.
I agree, but here's the thing. I like the thing is with shows like The Diplomat, WandaVision, and overcompensating. I've got to say this. Are they going to stand up the test of time as Desperate Housewives, Gilmore Girls, and Grey's Anatomy? It's going to be hard to do. It's going to be hard to do. And speaking of those three shows, you've had several recurring roles.
What a good segue.
I try my best.
Good job, Jacob.
Thank you. And like you've had, like seriously, you've had several recurring roles in some of the greatest television shows of all of the 2000s. Desperate Housewives, Gilmore Girls, and going strong at Grey's Anatomy. So, what were some lessons that you learned from those sets that helped you grow as an actor?
Well, it's funny because when I did Grey's Anatomy, that was actually in, I don't even remember what season, but it was like, I feel like that was like 8 years ago or something. So it was like 2016, 17, something like that. So, I mean, that show's been on, like, it's still on. They were all such different experiences, and I was at different points in my career. But I of those three, you mentioned Desperate Housewives, Grey's Anatomy, and Gilmore. So I think, well, Desperate Housewives and Gilmore Girls were kind of around the same time, and I did like 3 episodes of Desperate Housewives, and it was such a. I mean, I get nervous for every job I have because I like always worry I'm going to get fired, and it's always really hard. Like when you step on somebody's set and you're the guest star, they're all comfortable, the stars, because they're not, they've got a job, but you don't want to mess up, and you want to have all your lines down and work really hard and be prepared. And that show, the first episode I did on that was maybe the second season of it. So it was that was so popular. That show became a major hit right away. So I was like, oh my God, I'm on Desperate Housewives. And the storyline I was on was working with, was like Felicity Huffman's character, who I think is an amazing actress. And Mark Cherry, who created the show, used to come. I performed for years at there's a theater called the Groundlings Theater in Los Angeles, which is
one of the greatest comedy groups of all time. And that's because of the and just to let everyone know who haven't heard about the Groundlings have played a major role, and some of them have even gone on to SNL.
Oh yeah. Yes, a lot. There's and a lot of people that I kind of came up with, like Kristen Wiig and Mikey Day, who's currently on it, Heidi Gardner and stuff. But
he's also from Kansas City. Got us shout out.
Oh yeah, but like when I was coming up with the Groundlings, when I was a student there, like Will Ferrell, Sherry O'Terry, Chris Kattan, that group, Anna Gasteyer were all like they were at the Groundlings, and they had just got on Saturday Night Live. But you can go back to like Lorraine Newman, one of the original Groundlings, or Phil Hartman. They were all Groundlings. John Lovitz. There's so many. Maya Rudolph. There's too many. Anyway, so Mark Cherry used to come to the Groundling shows a lot. So he saw me on stage, and he was very nice. And so he was part of the reason why I got this, I got an audition for it, and then I got it. And I played Jerry, some character named Jerry, who works in the office with Felicity Huffman. But watching her work, she's such a good actress. And I learned a lot just by not only watching her work and her like professionalism, but how absolutely kind she was to me, who because I've worked with people before who are on shows, and they don't talk to you, and they don't have to, they have their own job to do, but she really made an effort to like introduce herself and be very warm. And I remember there was one take where the director was like, asked me to like say that line and just kind of give a bunch of different like readings to it. And she, in between takes, she came up to me, and once again, didn't know me, just met me. And I remember her saying, you know what, I have an idea. Like, and she said, you can totally tell me to fuck off. Like I would tell her. She goes, I have an idea if you want to hear it. And I'm like, sure, Felicity Huffman. And she gave me a thought, and I did it that way. And that was the take that they ended up using. So that was so cool of her. So there was a lesson there of like just how to behave. And it was, and even like they all were different. Gilmore Girls was such a that show was so like rat-a-tat-tat-tat dialogue, and like you couldn't change a word. Like they would correct you if it was like, oh, you said the and it's actually a. They wanted it that perfect. So that was like, to watch how everyone's so prepared on that show. Same thing with Grey's Anatomy. That was the one of my first times being on a show that was like, 'cause most of my background is comedy, like being on a dramatic series, and I played like this IT guy, and a lot of my lines were like really like, I know me personally, Mitch, nothing about computers, but I had to rattle off like a lot of like technical lines. So I had to like just kind of like look up like, what am I saying? But just to be that prepared, and most of my scenes were with Chandra Wilson, who has been in the show since the beginning and is still on
Oh
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And once, like Felicity Huffman, really very warm, made me feel very welcome. And also watching her in between takes, just going off and running her lines for the next scene, how professional she was, how prepared. I mean, because someone could be on a show for a long time and kind of like, be lazy or phone it in. And she wasn't. She obviously still cared very much. And it was cool. And she's great on the show, and she was great to work with. So all that stuff was like a lesson. Yeah, it's a and you mentioned All Rise, but also there was a show called All Rise and Nobodies, where I had the most, like, I think I did over 10 episodes for both shows, and that's just a different feeling when you're on it more, because you can start to feel more relaxed, like, oh, I think they like me, they're having me back. But when you're just like recurring like 2 or 3 times, you do feel like, I still have something to prove every time. But yeah, that's all about
Before
that.
we get, yeah, I agree with that as well. And like the thing is, I remember when Matt Cohen visited the blog back visited the podcast a couple of years ago, he did say, because he was also on General Hospital as well, and he was also telling me about having both those technological terms. And like his character Griffin was not just a doctor, but also a priest as well. So
Yeah.
having that kind of religious and that kind of technological medical terminology, that must have been tough.
It's weird. It's like learning. It's like you look at those lines in the script, and you are like, what am I saying? Like, it's like learning another language, and you have to make it sound like you're just kind of rattling it off. And then when I watch, I mean, I don't know if you watch The Pit, that show that's on HBO Max. I don't know if you watched that season. It's an amazing show, and it's this hospital drama, and it's all in an ER, and just to watch those actors like rattle off. I mean, I don't know. It is amazing, because none of them are actual doctors. I know they're just actors, but they are. It is so impressive how they just kind of like rattle off all that medical jargon. It's really it's challenging.
It is definitely challenging. And speaking of challenging, playing a district attorney,
Another one.
Clayton Berger with CBS and owns All Rise. And for doing that for 12 episodes, that must be a total left field, because you're playing a very heavy hitter. And also, I also believe that he was around longer. He was 12 episodes, I believe. So
Yeah.
how did he stand out amongst some of the characters that you played over the years?
I loved working on All Rise. It was 3 seasons, and I loved playing that character because he was kind of a jerk, and it was fun to play. And it was a drama series, but they would sometimes give me kind of like funny lines, and that cast was just, everybody was just so lovely, and just the best. And it was such a challenge too, because it was a very dialogue heavy show. And also, again, like I mentioned, it was a lot of like the courtroom scenes were very lawyer speak. There's a lot of like, I learned a lot. I actually learned, because I mean, as I'm an actor, I know nothing about law, even though other than my parents really actually wanted me to be a lawyer. So I guess this is the closest. When I got the part, I'm like, well, you proud now? I got to be a lawyer on TV. I also remember, because I was in the pilot, and this is my first time playing a lawyer, and I've kind of always wanted to do that. But I remember when I got to see in the script that I got to say objection. I got to yell objection a few times. I'm like, ooh, I got to yell objection. That's so, I get to yell objection in the courtroom. It's so dramatic. It was, yeah, it was, I learned a lot because I would like look up. I had to make sense. There's a logic towards questioning somebody on the witness stand and what you and what you're going after and where and I had to look up a lot of like just lawyer terms or what I'm saying or why I'm saying what I'm saying. But it was so much fun to do that and so challenging. I'd never done courtroom scenes before, and they were they're long days because they have to get so much like coverage camera wise, and because you're not only getting the people speaking, but you're getting so much reaction from everybody, and the camera has to have to turn around and get this, but it's a lot, and you're just but it's a really challenging thing to do as an actor, and I loved it. I loved doing that show. I've said it like a million times, but it was fun. I loved being a jerk lawyer. The funny thing is that they used to tease me like, yeah, I was on 12 episodes and my character, because, you know, it'd always be up against the regulars and they would inevitably almost always win the case. I think my character only won. I was always talked about like I was the shark lawyer and I was really good, but I only actually won one case the whole time. So how good was he?
Yeah, like the thing is, I watch like when it comes to like Law and Order and SVU and also like soaps like All My Children and General Hospital.
Yeah.
I think about the people like the actors like Walt Wiley and Carolyn Hennessy and Nancy Lee Grahn who play those courtroom characters very well, those attorneys. I'm like, okay, how can I do that? But that like it must take a while to learn the legal jargon and actually in a proper sequence.
Yeah, and then sometimes you don't have a lot of time. Like they get you the rewrite of the script, and or they change the shoot dates. Like they have the original date, like, oh, we're going to be shooting the courtroom scenes next week, and there was one episode where like they're like, no, that got moved to tomorrow. I'm like, ooh, there's 4 scenes. Like that's so you just have to kind of like that's a challenge, but it can be overwhelming, but it was fun. It's also a challenge. It's also a fun challenge to be like play the difference between who you are in the courtroom and then have scenes where you're like just being him as a person, like who he is as a person. That's all fun too.
Speaking of fun, many members of my audience will remember you for your role as the flight attendant on the iconic comedy Bridesmaids. And by the way, I think it's going to it's closing on 15 years next year.
My God. I can't believe it. That's really incredible.
Yeah, so how did you get that role? And describe the filming process to my audience, because I think I would be fired if I could not keep my composure on that set.
Well, that was as I mentioned earlier, like Kristen Wiig was somebody we came up in the Groundlings together. I was a little ahead of her. We were students together. We were in the main company at the Groundlings. I remember when she got on Saturday Night Live, we were just friends. We've been friends, we still are. And when Bridesmaids was being cast, she and Annie Mumolo, who wrote the screenplay together, they both came from the Groundlings. They reached out to a lot of people that they knew, Groundlings wise and elsewhere, but at the Groundlings, to audition for it. And my story was, I remember people were auditioning for it and people were going in and I hadn't gotten an audition. I'm like, oh, I hope I get an audition for Bridesmaids. I want to do the movie. I don't know. And then towards the tail end of the casting process, I got an audition for this flight attendant. And then maybe like 2 days before the audition was supposed to happen, where I was supposed to go in for the audition, my agent called me up and she's like, I have to tell you, I'm really sorry they canceled your audition because they said they're going to offer it to somebody. And I'm like, oh, that's a bummer. I'm like, oh, hopefully they'll think of me for something else. And while I was talking, she said, wait. And she goes, I misread the email. Sorry, wait, no, you're being offered the part. And I went, what? This was my first time ever being offered a part. I didn't know that was possible. I go, I'm being offered the part. They go, yeah, you're being offered the part. So apparently what happened was, well, Kristen recommended me, and then Paul Feig, who directed it, knew of me. I'd never met him, but in the mid 80s to the mid 2000s to late 2000s, I did these videos that went viral with Mikey Day, who's on Saturday Night Live, and this guy Michael Naughton, that were like these David Blaine parody videos, street magic videos, that when YouTube was first starting, and they just went viral, where I played David Blaine, and they were like these two guys that I was fooling, like messing with. And Paul Feig knew, and when she was like, oh yeah, I know that guy, we could just give him the part, which was completely different than Steve Stove, the flight attendant. Anyway, so I was offered the part, which was incredible. And then when I got on the set, I think I worked 3 days on that movie, and it shot in like Simi Valley, which is in California, in LA. And the set that they used, the airplane set, I'm a big movie buff, was the same. It was an actual airplane that they shoot on, that they just dismantle, but it was the same airplane that they shot from the movie Airplane, which is which is one of my favorite comedies of all time. And I remember telling Kristen on the set, oh, that means that this movie is going to become a big comedy classic too, like as a joke, not knowing that it actually did. But it was so good that has good juju, that set. But it felt, I mean, I was nervous. I didn't want to mess up. Paul Feig was there, all this stuff. But it was also very surreal, because so many people that were in the scene, Melissa McCarthy, Ben Falcone, Wendy McClendon Covey, Maya Rudolph, obviously Kristen, Annie Mumolo, who was, played the pregnant woman on the plane. They were all there, and we had known each other for years at the Groundlings. And so it weirdly felt like it just felt like the Groundlings, except for all of a sudden we all had all this money, and like it just felt like a sketch we were doing at the Groundlings, except for this time there's this great set, and we have costumes that somebody provided for us. And it was so much fun, because we did the scene as written the first time, and then we just basically could improvise. I mean, we knew the story, and so we improvised a lot. There were takes that I remember. There was one take that in my memory, which it felt like it went on for 10 minutes, but maybe it didn't. And I, picked Kristen up and put her back in her seat. Like, there's all this stuff. Like, I didn't even think about, because I knew her for so many years. And so, and we've improvised for years together. So it felt like a shorthand. A lot of the stuff that ended up in the movie was written, like the whole her calling me Stove. That was in the script, because I remember when I read it going, that's so funny that she misreads my name tag and thinks that, like, she thinks a human being is named Stove. Made me laugh. But like, there was, I know the stuff that's kind of like, oh, that's when we improvise that stuff. But it was just it was like a blast. It was so much fun, and like, not like any, because I've worked now with Paul Feig. He's been so nice to me. He's cast me in The Heat. He cast me in a really nice part in Spy, and all of those. It's always been a wonderful experience, but it's so rare, the experience that I had on Bridesmaids. Like, that was like, it felt, and that was my first, and that felt like just immediately like I'm flying first class, and now everything else feels like coach. And when you're on other movies, because that was just such a fun experience.
And that's amazing to hear, because there's so many laughs. I'm so amazed to learn that the airplane was on the same as the Airplane.
Isn't that
Because the
incredible?
thing is, I remember the jive talking nun and the guitar with the IV and everything.
Yeah.
And of course the blow up pilots. And then of course with Bridesmaids, you have that outrageous bathroom scene.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun. It was just really fun, and it was just I mean, I had a blast. It was just a great experience, and it doesn't always translate into like sometimes you have a great experience on the set that the actual product is good. Sometimes bad experiences on set end up being good movies, but this was something that was like a really great experience that ended up being a really good movie. And when I got to see it, I'm like, oh, this movie's real. I remember going to the premiere. It was my first premiere, and sitting there, and like John Hamm was sitting in the row, like that. I was like, what's happening? But I got, I started watching the movie and I forgot I was in it. I was just enjoying the movie. And then when they got to the airplane, I'm like, oh God, I'm about to, like, I just got nervous. But yeah, it was a great experience.
And like I gotta say this, from you've done a lot of incredible things, but like another incredible thing that I was like, wow, when I saw that you were credited for two writer as a guest writer for SNL. So how did that idea come and when did that opportunity came about? And like what were I know you had a short time in SNL,
Yeah.
but what were some of the lessons that you learned at Studio 8H at that time that helped you grow as a writer?
Well, it's SNL used to, I don't know if they're still doing it. They used to do this thing where they would hire somebody for like 2 weeks to be a guest writer. I know Mindy Kaling did done that, and a bunch of people I know. And it was for whatever reason. Sometimes it's like a test drive to see if they want to hire you as a writer. Sometimes they just want to shake the place up. Who knows? The psychology of that place is really interesting. But I mean, I had auditioned for Saturday Night Live at one point, and I was told I got close, but then I've known people who've been on the show, and uh, my friend, a really good friend of mine, Kent Sublette, who's one of the head writers there and has been there for a while. He came from the Groundlings too, and he reached out to me once, and he's like, "Would you ever be interested in like just doing a 2 week guest writing thing here?" And I'm like, of course. I mean, yes, why not? And so I got to do Beyond and do 2 episodes. It was an episode with Sterling K. Brown, who was a host, and Bill Hader was the host on the show. And it was Heidi Gardner's first season on it. Mikey Day was still on it. So I knew those two from the Groundlings. And 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 it was, you know, it was an amazing experience just to, I've watched the show since I was a kid and been such a fan of it. It's been so influential on, and to be like sort of, behind the curtain and to see how it all works. And some of it I already knew because I've known so many people who work on it that I've heard, but to see it actually, I'm like, oh, this is true. It's how it works, and how little you're told how anything works, and you just kind of have to figure it out, how fast it all works. um and to be there at the table read for it, to see how on actually Saturday when they're doing the show, the difference between the dress rehearsal and the actual show, and how things are still being written, how the first episode, I got lucky because the first week I was there, Heidi Gardner and I wrote something for her to do on Weekend Update, and it got selected to be in. She was still a newer like cast member, and it was in dress rehearsal, and then it got cut, and it didn't get to be in the actual show that night. But it felt like all the writers were like, it's kind of cool that it sometimes takes a while to even get it to dress rehearsal, but I got to have the experience of like doing a dress rehearsal and like rewriting it with Heidi, and like in the makeup, like makeup while she's getting makeup on, we're changing lines and like running. Do you ever see the movie Broadcast News with Holly Hunter? And
A
there's a
little bit.
scene where Joan Cusack is like running around to try to get a tape from one department to the next, and like as it's about to get on air, and that's what it felt like, running to get it to the people so they could write it on the cue cards. And it was exciting, uh, and also stressful and exhausting. It is it was a really interesting experience, and also I was lucky enough that the second week, working with Bill Hader, like seeing Bill Hader work, who's just kind of a genius, like at sketch comedy. He's and so nice, like kind of everything you want him to be, like so nice. That was really cool. Yeah, it was a really interesting experience. It's a lesson in, and everybody is stressed out there because how can they not be? I mean, it must age people so fast.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised how Lorne Michaels still looks good after all these years.
Seriously, I mean, I think you've got to sort of like kind of like thrive on chaos, like like get off on everything being chaotic. It kind of maybe keeps you alive and it gives you life. It's not for everybody though, and yeah, it's a very interesting experience. And you learn the lesson you really learned, which is kind of at the Groundlings too, is as a writer and performance choose as a writer, is how not to make everything precious, and that not a lot is about you. Like they got a show to do, and you just have to just put out material and keep trying. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and move on. And it's not. It just, you have to keep going, and they just have a show to do, and not everything's going to be a gem. It's fast. It's very fast.
And that brings me to my next thing. It's like basically with all these lessons that you learned, it's like you're easily able to say, okay, you're able to overcome all these obstacles that are in your way, Mitch, because with all these experience from our conversation, you've learned so much from being on these different sets, from no matter if it's like a major primetime drama to one of the greatest comedy movies of all time, to one of the greatest, to being part for, even though it was for 2 weeks, one of the greatest live for comedy shows of all time on television comedy shows. It feels like you've made sure that you like these lessons are like also help you prepare to overcome obstacles.
Yeah, that's thank you. Anybody who's sort of in the arts creatively, it is a constant battle of your own like self-esteem, like all that stuff, because it's nothing is secure. Nothing is secure. Even if like, you become very famous, nothing is ever secure. You're just always trying to get your next job. And you can feel terrible in a second, like like you can be on set and mess up and just feel like your self-esteem is in the toilet. So it's a constant battle of like your own like like mental health, and you do hopefully learn lessons that you keep relearning over and over again, that and getting better at what you're doing. But it's a constant battle of self-worth, like in getting the next job, and hopefully trying to not make your self-worth about getting the job, and knowing that you're good. And also knowing, because I've been on the other side of the camera too, where my friend Jim Cashman and I, we've sold like 2 pilots, and one of them got made for Fox, and that was the first time that I was ever on the other side, casting people and being there and seeing people who were so good, like, and not get the job. And when you're the one auditioning, sometimes you're like, I felt so good, like I don't know why I didn't get maybe they hated me, and it's just, you want to call those actors and go, you were so good, sorry, it was this reason, there's no reason, or there was an offer out. Like, there's not much in your control other than being prepared and doing the best job that you can, because the actual getting of a job is like, I mean, who knows? Like, as I mentioned, like Bridesmaids, I got offered that, which, how many times have I been up for a role that there was an offer out to somebody else? But this was the first time, it's me who got the offer. but there might have been other actors who had the audition for the part too, and they're like, it didn't matter what they did because I was offered. So it's just crazy business. It's just, there's nothing secure about it.
Tell me about it. It's also the same as getting for a job and also securing interviews. Like, yes, this is the 380th show, and like it's been a long road. There's still people I've been trying to get on this platform, but still it's been difficult to get that. It's like there have been constant saying, am I good enough? Is my content great? Is it the wrong time? Is it like, the thing is, I'll be reaching 15 years in 2026. And the thing is, I'm still keeping going because I'm so passionate about it.
Yes. That's absolutely it. There's an element of all of us doing anything creatively that almost like you have to keep blinders on and just know that you're doing it because you love doing it and you can't not do it. And that's great. That's your passion. And you're getting better at it, but it is very easy to talk yourself down and to beat yourself up over it because it's just too easy to do it because why isn't this I'm not getting this, like, you're not getting this person, or I'm not getting this job. Like, well, the only thing I have control, I can blame myself and beat myself up over it. But it's often not the reason. It's really important to just remember that you love doing this. And as long as you love doing it, that's great. Just keep going, just keep going, be defiant about it and love it and create your own stuff. Just creating your own stuff is the best. And there's so many ways to do it now because of social media. It's so easy just to even make a video now, where it wasn't when I started. Like, if you wanted to make your own like short film or video, it was like really expensive. And now it's like, no, not at all.
Yeah, all you gotta do is just put on your phone or like basically have a streamer. Like, for example, I don't think I'd be able to afford a technology that brought that ABC, Good Morning America, or the Today Show had of the 2 split screens way back in the day for this kind of interview. Like, it would cost me like I would have my folks fighting tooth and nail. My folks saying, "You're paying this many thousands of dollars for this?"
Yeah. Yeah, that's easier now, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about, because podcasts, I feel like they're easy for me, but like as someone that has acted on fiction, on like serial-based podcasts, is it easier for you because you've done 6 episodes of The Neighborhood Listen and then 7 episodes of the Pack podcast? So is it easier to act out on a podcast versus a television or film set?
That is a really interesting question. Well, I love doing podcasts in general because probably I like to talk, but like clearly, but acting, like the Neighborhood Listen one, I think I actually just did my 8th one, this one, but I love that they keep having me back. That is so much fun. That one, because it's all improvised, and the 2 hosts, Paul F. Tompkins and Nicole Parker, are so much fun to improvise with, and doing character. That feels effortless. That almost feels, it's just effortless because I've improvised on stage, and that's more, and I love improv, but it's more difficult on stage. But doing it there's just something so easy and fun. It's almost like you know what it's like when I was a kid. My friend Mark and I used to like take our cassette recorders and do these like shows that we would do these fake interviews and do all these characters. And it kind of feels like when I was a kid that we're just doing like, but the equipment's better now. And we're better at it and we're adults, but it's like that. I love it. Or like I've done like the Pack one, that one's scripted, and that's more like short plays. So much fun to do that. I actually weirdly think it's easier. It's like almost like doing a radio play. It's just, and you can look like anything. You don't have to dress like anything. You can just wear a t-shirt and just do it. I love doing it. I love doing podcasts. I'm actually developing a podcast right now. This guy, Chris, I have a solo show I've been doing. I just did it in Colorado, called 5 Game Shows and a Funeral. And it's because I've been on 5 game shows in my life since I was a kid.
Awesome. What are they?
Okay, so when I was in 5th grade, there was a local LA game show called Grab Bag. And then I was on a game show called Card Sharks. When I was a teenager, I was on Scrabble. I was on Til You Drop. And
I love that show. I
was
love
on
like
it, and
with
then-
the mall and everything.
yeah, the fake mall. And in the early 2000s, I was on a game show called Hollywood Showdown that was on a
Oh,
network.
was that basically like where they had all 6 of those classic game shows come together?
No, Hollywood Showdown was on PAX TV, and it
Okay.
was like about Hollywood trivia. And like I'm like a nerd with Hollywood trivia, so I did well on that one. But so anyway, so this game show is I have clips from 4 of them, so it's sort of about my experiences on those shows, but it's also about my family too. Because the Card Sharks episode in particular, I was 14 years old. It was a teen week, and you had to gamble on that show, and I won. So I had to pick a parent to go on that show to play the bonus round with. And I picked my dad, and my dad and I did not have a good relationship. My dad was a bit of a gambler, and we fought. Like, we literally fought on TV. Like, my dad was like, bet it all, bet it all. And like, I was like this, like, sensitive, like, very responsible, like, closeted gay kid. And like, I was just like, but the experience of it's about my family too. So it's a funny show, but it's got heart to it. But somebody saw the show and they were like, I've had this idea for a podcast about game shows. So we're kind of developing, and we've done 3 episodes right now. Yeah, I love doing podcasts. They're so much fun.
And I love podcasts, but I love watching game shows because as a 90s Nickelodeon kid, Legends of the Hidden Temple, Family Double Dare,
Yeah.
Guts, Nick Arcade, those Wild and Crazy
That's
kids.
your sweet son, yeah.
Yeah, that's my sweet tooth. And then, of course, the Whoopi and Tom Bergeron Hollywood Squares and the Henry Winkler Hollywood Squares, which, by the way, I did meet Henry Winkler when he came to play in a Comic-Con. I did say that he was like, oh boy, when I mentioned Hollywood Squares. So, oh boy.
That's awesome. No, I'm more of, because I'm older, like the old Hollywood Squares with Peter Marshall. Like I remember like being a kid and watching Paul Lynde on that show, and like.
Oh, and speaking of how about speaking of Match Game, I still have my classic lineup, like the classic with seriously, I still like Brett Summers and Charles Nelson Riley, Fannie Flagg, and then Alan
Richard
and Betty.
Dawson. Richard Dawson before he was on Family Feud.
Absolutely, and Dawson too. That would be my dream panel, and then of course that iconic host, one of my all-time favorite.
Gene Rayburn.
Gene Rayburn,
The
yes,
long skinny Mike.
He is probably the top 10. It's like if we have game show hosts, for me, it will always be Bob Barker, Mark Summers, because part of Nickelodeon for me, and then also Peter Marshall, Alex Trebek, Pat and Vanna together, because you got to have them as a duo.
Sure. You know who was awesome too? The guy who hosted Card Sharks, this guy Jim Perry. He was the nicest guy. Okay, I'm going to say something that's going to make you very jealous. I used to know Charles Nelson Riley.
What?
Yes, I used to know Charles Nelson Riley. He was
a force to be reckoned with. He and Brett together. If you got
and Brett
together,
insane. He was I loved him so much. I met him when I got out of college, and I had done a play reading, and he directed. He used to direct a lot of theater. He had won like 2 Tony Awards. He was like great. And he, he became really famous for a lot of reasons, but one of it was, being on game shows and sort of like being that like, that thing where he was a really good acting teacher and director. And I was directed by him, and I took his acting class, and he was the greatest. He was the greatest. I miss him so much. The best. I feel so, yeah, he was an icon. He was an icon.
It would have been very interesting to have him and Brett Summers if Match Game turned like 50, because it would have been to talk about them about that, and also the late great Betty White and also Rick Richard as well. And it'd have been great to see that. Like, I know Fanny's the last one standing.
Yeah, true. And also, like, just to be on, if you can go back in time, just be on that set, because I mean they were all like drinking.
It was just like Hollywood Squares. It was like Hollywood Squares too. Like, I heard about the Peter Marshall version, and I heard about the Tom Bergeron version, because there was like behind the scenes of Spock, and Whoopi said, "I'm ordering all of these Spagos." All righty, so we got to start winding down our conversation, Mitch. So where can my audience connect with you and find your projects and also find out when you're appearing on podcasts and also social media?
Absolutely. I am on Instagram at my is it called handle or whatever they're called? It's
It is.
okay. My handle is at Mitch Silpa Pics. So Mitch Silpa, as you can see on this thing, Pics Pics, and I'm on TikTok at Mitch Silpa. You can look for me those two places.
Awesome. So, guys, if you missed an episode of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar podcast, visit our channels on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Spreaker. Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar, JACOB ELYACHAR. Now, are you on social media? Because I'm on social media too. Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, and YouTube. Jacob Elyachar, JACOB ELYACHAR. And want to find out what's going on with America's Got Talent? Want to find out all my podcasts and everything? Well, you can visit the blog to start it all, jakes.shake.com. Once again, jakes.shake.com. And I'm so excited to reveal that the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar podcast is an American Business Award winning podcast.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. So thank you so much to all of the judges that selected me to be a part of this, and also to all of you for watching and listening. I would, for the past 380 episodes, I wouldn't have done it without you. Mitch, thank you so much for taking time on your schedule. It was a joy speaking with you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All righty, guys. And thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, everybody, for the 380th time, good